Your soulmate secretly put a property in your name. Why this address changes everything. My beloved child, something has already been set in motion behind your back, and the moment you understand what it is, everything you thought you knew about your soulmate may suddenly look different. Don't skip, because this is not simply about a house, a piece of land, or a name written on an ordinary document. Your soulmate has been quietly preparing something connected directly to you, something they were not ready to explain until the right moment arrived. And now that moment is closer than you realize. Somewhere, there is a property connected to your name, but the truly surprising part is not the property itself. It is the address. That address carries a meaning your soulmate has kept hidden because revealing it would expose exactly how seriously they have been thinking about a future with you. They could have chosen another place. They could have chosen another name. They could have kept everything completely separate from you. But they didn't. And when you discover why, one question may immediately enter your mind: how long have they been planning this? Stay till the end, because the answer becomes even more unexpected. Your soulmate has imagined a moment when you finally see that address and recognize something familiar about it. Something tied to a conversation, a memory, a dream, or a future you once described without realizing they were listening to every detail. They remembered more than you thought. And while you may have believed those little conversations disappeared with time, your soulmate carried one particular detail forward. That detail became a location. The location became a decision. And that decision quietly became something with your name attached to it. But there is another layer to this that changes the entire meaning. Your soulmate did not make this choice simply to impress you. Something huge is waiting for you, because the address appears to represent a promise they were never brave enough to say directly. Think about that for a moment. Instead of explaining everything with words, they began creating something real. Every step was deliberate. Every choice pointed toward one possibility. They wanted you to have a place in the future they were building, even before they knew whether you would ever stand beside them there. Don't skip, because this is where the story takes the turn they hoped you would eventually understand. There was apparently one moment when your soulmate almost abandoned this entire idea. They questioned whether they were imagining too much, hoping for too much, or preparing for a future that might never happen. But then something reminded them of you. Maybe it was a sentence you once said. Maybe it was a place you described. Maybe it was the way you spoke about wanting peace, stability, and somewhere that finally felt like home. Whatever that moment was, it changed their decision. Instead of walking away from the idea, they moved closer to it. And suddenly, your name mattered more than ever. Because this was no longer about owning something. It was about quietly saying, "I remembered what mattered to you." And the address? That is where the biggest clue has been hiding. There is a reason they selected that exact place rather than somewhere easier, newer, or more obvious. The location connects back to something your soulmate believes only you will fully understand when you finally see it, and now comes the detail they have been most nervous about revealing. Stay till the end, because this is where everything starts connecting. Your soulmate apparently imagined you arriving at this address without knowing what was waiting there. They imagined the confusion on your face when you first saw the location, followed by the exact second when recognition finally appeared. Because there is something about this place that reaches further back than the property itself. It represents where one chapter was supposed to end and another was meant to begin. Your soulmate has been holding on to the possibility that one day, instead of explaining how much you mattered, they could simply show you what they had prepared. But even that is not the biggest revelation. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is one specific reason your name was chosen, and it has nothing to do with convenience. Your soulmate wanted there to be no confusion about who this was meant for. Not someday. Not accidentally. Not as an afterthought. You. And when the full reason behind that decision comes forward, the property will suddenly seem like the smallest part of the story. Because hidden behind that address is a choice your soulmate made about the future, a choice they have not yet spoken aloud. They have rehearsed how they would explain it. They have imagined your reaction. They have even wondered whether you would believe them when they finally admitted how long this plan had existed. But there is still one secret they have protected more carefully than everything else, what they intend to do when you finally discover the address. And that is where the real story begins. The moment you understand why that exact address was chosen, the entire story begins to change. Your soulmate did not simply search for a beautiful property and suddenly decide to connect your name to it. No. The choice appears to have started much earlier, with something you may not even remember saying. Don't skip, because one small sentence from your past may have stayed in their mind far longer than you ever imagined. At some point, you spoke about the kind of life that would finally feel peaceful to you, the feeling of waking up somewhere that felt safe, familiar, and truly yours. You may have said it casually, but your soulmate remembered. And later, when they came across this particular address, something stopped them immediately. The surroundings, the feeling, even the meaning attached to the location reminded them of what you once described. That was when an ordinary property became something completely different in their eyes. Stay till the end, because there is another detail hidden inside this decision. They visited the idea again and again before doing anything. They questioned whether putting your name there would be too much. They wondered whether you would understand the meaning or think it was simply a random gesture. But every time they tried to choose another direction, they returned to the same address. Something huge is waiting for you, because your soulmate began seeing this place not as something they owned, but as a symbol of the future they had secretly pictured with you. And there was one particular part of that future they could never stop imagining. What they imagined was surprisingly simple, yet deeply personal. They pictured you standing at that address for the first time, looking around without realizing that every important detail had somehow been chosen with you in mind. Don't skip, because this is where their hidden intention becomes clearer. They imagined telling you, "I listened even when you thought I wasn't listening." They remembered the little things, the atmosphere you liked, the feeling you wanted your future home to have, the kind of quiet life you once described. But there was something else. Your soulmate reportedly had an opportunity to choose a property that seemed easier and more impressive, yet they kept returning to this one. Why? Because the address itself reminded them of a turning point between you. Perhaps the name of the road, the area, or another small detail connected emotionally to something they associated with you. And once they noticed that connection, they could not ignore it. Stay till the end, because their next decision was even bigger. They began thinking beyond the property. They started imagining what would happen after you learned the truth. Would you ask why your name was there? Would you understand what they were trying to communicate without saying everything directly? Would you finally realize that while silence existed between you, their feelings had not simply disappeared? Something huge is waiting for you, because the answer they prepared for your biggest question reveals exactly what this address means to them, and here is where the secret becomes far more emotional than material. Your soulmate does not want the property itself to be the message. The message is what putting your name there represents: trust, intention, and a future they have quietly been considering for much longer than they have admitted. They know a name on a document cannot decide a relationship, and they know the future must still be chosen by both people. But in their heart, this gesture became their way of showing that you were never treated like a temporary thought. Don't skip, because there is still one piece missing. Your soulmate has apparently kept something connected to that address that they want you to see only after you understand why the place was chosen. It could answer the question that has been sitting underneath everything: why me? And their answer is not about perfection. It is about the way you changed what home meant to them. Before you, home may have simply meant a location. After you, it began meaning a person they could imagine returning to. Stay till the end, because they have one final reveal connected to the property that could completely change how you interpret everything that came before. There is a particular space within that future they imagined specifically for you, and the reason behind it reaches back to something you once wanted but may have stopped believing would happen. Your soulmate remembered it. They built their secret around it. And when that final detail comes forward, you may finally understand why this address, and no other one, became the place where they decided to put your name. What happened after your soulmate chose that address is the part they never expected you to discover this way. Don't skip, because the property was only the beginning of what they had quietly imagined. Once your name became connected to that place, something changed inside them. Suddenly, this was no longer a private dream they could easily forget. It felt real. They started picturing ordinary moments there, not grand celebrations, not perfect scenes, but the small moments that make a future meaningful. They imagined you opening the door after a long day, choosing where your favorite things would go, standing by a window and realizing that someone had remembered what you once said you wanted from life. Stay till the end, because there was one particular space they kept thinking about. It was not chosen for themselves. In their imagination, it belonged completely to you. A place where you could create, think, rest, dream, or simply feel that you finally had somewhere that reflected who you were. And this is where something surprising happened. Your soulmate began making decisions about that space based on tiny details you had shared long ago. Things you probably assumed nobody remembered. But they did. Something huge is waiting for you, because one of those forgotten details may be the real reason this particular property became impossible for them to walk away from. They saw something there that immediately reminded them of you, and in that instant, the address stopped being just an address. It became their silent answer to a future question you had never even asked, yet there was one problem they could not ignore. The closer this secret came to becoming real, the more they wondered whether they had the courage to tell you. Don't skip, because this hesitation reveals something important. They were not afraid that the property would seem too small. They were afraid the meaning behind it would reveal too much. Telling you why your name mattered would mean admitting how far into the future they had allowed their heart to travel. It would mean confessing that during moments when you may have believed they were distant, they were privately imagining stability with you. They rehearsed different explanations. Each one sounded incomplete. "I wanted to do something meaningful" was not enough. "I thought you would like this place" was not enough. Because neither sentence explained why this address had been chosen. "Stay till the end," because eventually they realized there was only one way to explain it: they would have to tell you the story behind the location. And that story reaches back to a moment between you that seemed ordinary when it happened. A conversation. A passing dream. A sentence about where you hoped life might take you someday. Your soulmate never told you, but after that conversation, they began searching differently. They stopped looking at places through their own eyes and started asking one question: could they be happy here? That question changed everything. And now the biggest clue is finally beginning to surface. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is apparently one feature of this address your soulmate deliberately kept unchanged. They could have replaced it, redesigned it, or chosen something completely different, but they refused. Why? Because it reminded them of the exact moment they realized their feelings for you were not temporary. Don't skip. Imagine discovering that something you barely noticed had become a symbol someone carried quietly for all this time. That is why the reveal is bigger than money or property. The real revelation is how carefully your soulmate remembered you. They were collecting pieces of your dreams while you were simply living your life. And somewhere along the way, those pieces became a plan. Stay till the end, because the next truth changes the direction of everything. There is a reason your soulmate has not shown you the property yet. They are waiting for something specific to happen first. Not because they want to play games, but because they believe the timing will determine whether you understand the gesture correctly. They want you to hear one confession before you ever see that address with your own eyes. And that confession contains the sentence they have repeatedly stopped themselves from saying. It explains why your name was chosen, why this location mattered, and why they were willing to prepare something without knowing what your answer would eventually be. When that sentence finally comes out, you may realize the property was never meant to convince you of anything. It was created to prove something your soulmate could no longer deny to themselves. When they pictured where their future could finally feel like home, somehow, every road kept leading back to you. There is one truth behind that address your soulmate has never been able to explain without becoming overwhelmed by everything it represents. Don't skip, because the secret was never simply that your name became connected to a property. The deeper secret is what they decided immediately afterward. For the first time, they stopped imagining you as someone who might someday disappear from their future and started imagining what it would mean if you actually stayed. That thought changed the entire plan. They began looking at the property differently. Every room became a question. Every window became a possibility. Every quiet corner reminded them of something you once said you wanted. Stay till the end, because one detail affected them more than everything else. There was a particular place inside that property where they suddenly pictured you standing, completely unaware of how long they had carried this dream. In their imagination, you looked at them and asked one simple question: why did you do all of this? They tried to imagine giving you a complicated explanation, but every version eventually came down to the same truth, because they wanted you to know you had mattered even during the silence. Because your dreams had stayed in their memory. Because when they finally had an opportunity to turn one of those dreams into something real, they could not bring themselves to put only their own future first. Something huge is waiting for you, because there was another choice connected to that property, a choice they made without telling anyone exactly why. That choice involved one part of the address they could easily have changed, but deliberately kept exactly as it was. Don't skip, because its meaning reaches back to a memory they believe you would recognize instantly. Perhaps it echoes a place you once talked about, a number connected to a meaningful moment, or a detail that carries significance only when viewed through the story between you. To everyone else, it would appear ordinary. To your soulmate, it became the final sign that this was the place. And that is why they kept returning even when other options appeared. Stay till the end, because they almost told you everything once. They had the words ready. They imagined revealing the address, explaining your name, and finally admitting why they had gone this far. But at the last moment, they stopped. Not because the meaning disappeared, but because they realized something important. They did not want the property to become pressure. They wanted your response to come from your own heart. So they kept the secret and waited. During that waiting, however, another unexpected realization arrived. Your soulmate understood that what they truly wanted was not to impress you with something valuable. They wanted to offer you something far rarer, the feeling of being remembered. The feeling that your smallest dreams had not disappeared into empty conversations. The feeling that someone heard you when you spoke about the future. Something huge is waiting for you, because the final reason they chose your name has now become impossible for them to keep hidden forever. And when they finally explain that reason, the address may suddenly make perfect sense. Your soulmate wanted your name there because they believed the place should represent possibility, not possession. They wanted you to see that they had stopped building every dream around themselves. Don't skip, because there is still one final turn hidden inside this decision. They have imagined taking you to the property without telling you where you are going. They have imagined watching you notice the surroundings, slowly recognize the details, and finally understand why the location feels strangely familiar. Then, only after you understand the address, they want to tell you what they have been holding back. Stay till the end, because those words are bigger than the property itself. They want to admit that there was a moment when they genuinely tried to imagine their future without you, and something always felt missing. The places looked beautiful, the plans looked sensible, but none of them felt complete. Then they remembered what you once described as home, and everything shifted. This property became their quiet way of acknowledging that realization. But there is another secret waiting beyond the address. Your soulmate has apparently connected one future decision to the moment you finally learn everything. They have not made that decision for you, because they know your future belongs to you. Instead, they are waiting to hear what you feel after the truth is revealed. And whatever happens next, they want you to understand one thing clearly: your name was never placed there because they expected something in return. It was placed there because somewhere between remembering your words and imagining that address, they finally understood just how deeply you had become connected to the future they secretly hoped to build. Now the secret moves beyond the property, because your soulmate has been holding back one final reason for choosing that exact address. Don't skip, because this is the detail that makes everything before it suddenly connect. There was apparently a moment when they stood there and realized the location matched something you had described long ago almost perfectly. Maybe you had forgotten that conversation, but they had not. You spoke about wanting a place where life could finally feel calm, where mornings would not feel rushed, where the future would feel less uncertain, and where you could look around and genuinely feel that you belonged. Your soulmate carried those words far longer than you realized. Stay till the end, because when they discovered this address, they did not immediately think about price, appearance, or status. Their first thought was you. That frightened them because it confirmed something they had been avoiding. Even when making one of the biggest decisions of their own life, their mind naturally included you. And that was when your name became part of the plan. Something huge is waiting for you, because they reportedly asked themselves one question before moving forward: if they saw this place someday, would they recognize the dream they once described? The answer they felt inside was yes. From that moment onward, the address became more than a location. It became a message they hoped you would understand before they even explained it. But there is something your soulmate has not admitted yet. They nearly changed everything at the last moment. Don't skip, because this is where the story could have ended completely differently. They began wondering whether you had moved beyond the dreams you once shared, whether your vision for the future had changed, and whether revealing such a meaningful gesture would surprise you too much. For a while, they considered keeping your name separate from everything. It would have been easier. It would have required no explanation. Yet every time they imagined doing that, they felt as though they were removing the most important meaning from the entire decision. Stay till the end, because eventually they understood that this was never supposed to be about predicting your answer. It was about being truthful about their own intention. They wanted the property to carry a message even if the future unfolded differently than they hoped. And that message was simple: you mattered when this decision was made. Something huge is waiting for you, because there is apparently another detail connected to the address that they intentionally saved for last. Somewhere within the story of that place is a reminder of the first time they seriously imagined building a stable future with you. That memory became their private confirmation that they were choosing the right location. Nobody else looking at the address would understand it. But they believe you might. And when you finally learn what that hidden connection is, your soulmate expects you to ask the question they have been preparing themselves to answer: what happens now? Don't skip, because their answer may be the most surprising part of everything. They do not want to decide the next chapter alone. The property may already carry your name, the address may already carry a memory, and their heart may already carry a vision, but they know a genuine future cannot be secretly written for two people by only one person. Stay till the end, because that realization changed their original plan. Instead of simply revealing the property and expecting you to understand everything, they want to tell you the truth behind every decision. Why they remembered your words. Why they returned to this location. Why other places never felt right. Why your name became the detail they could not remove. And then they want to leave one question with you, not a demand, not an expectation, but a possibility: could this place ever represent a new beginning to you too? Something huge is waiting for you, because even after everything you have heard, the deepest secret is still untouched. There is something your soulmate intends to show you at that property before explaining the final meaning of the address. It is connected to a promise they once made privately to themselves about you. And once you discover what that promise was, you may finally understand that the property was never the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise was how long ago your soulmate began imagining a future where your name was not simply written on a document, it was written into the life they hoped they might someday share with you.